Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's Thursday, December 9th, and I'd like to call this regular Operations Planning Committee meeting to order at 9:03. We're starting now because we have people that have other commitments that have to get to. So, first order of business is to approve the prior meeting minutes from October 14th. Does anyone have any additions, subtractions, any comments? No?
Do not. I'll make a motion to approve.
Would you please? Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Abstain.
Abstain? Okay, so, you got that?
You're
Jim?
good. No, she gets it.
Okay,
Good tag team.
next order of business is to discuss and approve the meeting schedule for this coming year. So the meetings will be on Wednesday. The only kind of change, they'll be on the second Wednesday except for April, which is due to the Board of Ed break. We will not meet in August, otherwise it's a monthly meeting for the rest of the year. So does anyone have any comments? Hey, Terry. Welcome, Terry Wood, our state representative. So we're going over the meeting schedule for next year.
Okay.
And it's a monthly meeting, second Wednesday of every month, except for April due to the Board of Ed vacation, and there's no meeting in August. So if there are no comments, discussion, could I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the
That's
meeting
two.
schedule for 2022.
Do I have a second? Jim Palin, all in favor? Terrific.
Monica, just a question on OPC, like in the event that, unexpected travel pops up or something like that, are we getting ready to be able to set up to have sort of hybrid if something happens and we can't make it in person?
You actually, under the FOI regulations, you'd have to basically adopt a rule under the circumstances which you would allow virtual participation, and then you can have virtual participation. So if the committee wants to allow it, or when somebody's traveling for business, I think you just vote to make that a rule.
I did just kind of put it out there as one of the things the Board of Finance has talked about whether or
Right.
not we would allow virtual participation, whether we would allow it as an option, or whether we allow it in terms of, kind of last minute issues, miss a train, travel, kind of logistics and so forth. So I just put it out there to the extent we think, if people couldn't make it in person, would that be an option?
Yeah. The other thing that has long been done with OPC is sending a replacement, like, Jeremy's here representing P&Z today instead of Steve. So that's another alternative, but I think all boards should really think about that and make a reasonable accommodation for people. Shouldn't be so that you can sit home and watch your favorite TV show and have a glass of wine while you're doing business. But if you have to travel for business and you can actually dedicate the time to participate in the meeting, it's just that you're in Chicago on business, I think that should be allowed. But it's up to each group.
Is the technology set up yet?
Yeah,
that we can,
yeah, you could,
We
yeah,
can zoom in?
yeah,
It's worked for the Board of Ed. I mean, we do it.
yeah.
We
The only thing
just-
that I think we
Facilities
have,
this morning, 2 people remoted in for the facilities meeting.
Okay.
yeah, the one thing that we don't have the greatest technology for is for you, the remote person, to see the people who are here in person.
Right.
Okay.
But it'd be no problem for everybody else to see you.
So we don't need a motion or anything for that, do we, Kim?
I think you should establish that if that's your, if you want to establish that members who are traveling for business or, I don't know what other things you might want to put in there.
Family necessity or urgent, family business or.
Yeah, I mean, you can make it as broad as you want, really.
I think it's important for everybody to get together in person. I think we all have sort of surrogates. Dan is certainly my surrogate and is in town and is able, and just as Frank has in the past, kind of sit in. But I think in the event that neither of those can happen, I
Yeah.
think it'd be a great option if sort of extenuating circumstances existed that either the person or their surrogate couldn't attend.
Yeah, and I think particularly with this committee, you can be pretty loose about it. I'd be concerned about somebody who was away on vacation with their family and wanted to do the Board of Finance budget meetings virtually, because are they really going to be
Right.
Right.
engaged? But for this committee, it's more of an informative session than it is, you're not taking actions.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
I
yeah.
think that's the key. You're on vacation, you should be on vacation. You're traveling for business, this is on your schedule, you can zoom in. That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you don't want to appoint your deputy to come. Yeah.
Right. I think Terry's extenuating circumstances is probably the best term.
Yeah.
So, Kate, should we make a motion?
Go for it.
Okay. Jim, you want to make a motion on that?
Sure. I'd make a motion that the OPC adopt a policy such that, if there are extenuating circumstances, that members could join remotely, for a meeting.
Okay. With the understanding that our first option is to go in person with a
Correct.
surrogate.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
I will second that.
Duke, all in favor? Okay.
Good.
Unanimous. Super. Anything else on the meeting schedule? Okay, so we're all good? Kate?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I will give my report, and because we just did the state of the town, my report is not, I'm not going to duplicate what I said there. But on the COVID update, we had 200 people registered for this last clinic on Tuesday. And the next, for the booster clinic, and the next booster clinic is next Tuesday. And I think it's important for people to understand that the registrations for the booster clinic are done through VAMS, and anyone can register on VAMS, in town, out of town, for the booster clinic. So I think it's important for people to monitor the website for that and the VAMS portal regularly to see if there are openings. We will be doing the second dosage for children this Saturday, and that was a big group that went through 2 weeks ago. So this is the follow-up. So the first group of children received their second dose, and now the second group of children will receive their second dose this coming Saturday. We continue to need volunteers, both vaccinators and people to volunteer to help the vaccinators. So if people know of anyone, especially vaccinators, that determines how many clinics we can offer. So that's really, really important.
Are you looking for people to administer the vaccination?
Yes, yes.
Have you checked with Post 53? I believe they are legally able to.
Spoke with them yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they've got a great approval.
yeah, and they've been very helpful in the past.
Yeah.
And just in general, the volunteer level has been fantastic. Ann Reed coordinating the volunteers on that side, it's been really, really tremendous for the town. But, this has been going on for a while, so we do have some people, we have a little bit of fatigue. So if we have new people that we can bring in, I think that's terrific.
And these would be people that are specifically comfortable kind of giving shots to young kids, right?
Yes, this Saturday's, we're good on vaccinators. I'm thinking specifically for the booster clinic next Tuesday, we could use people. We can have as many as 9 stations open, but we need 9 vaccinators. And as dentists and doctors have gone back to their regular practices, we've seen a shortage. So we can't offer as many stations. So that's what we are, that's the driver here, is actually the vaccinators. I want to just mention that the Small Business Association is still open at the library, and this is December 29th deadline is coming right up for small business low-interest loans. They're also available for nonprofits and for residents. And the FEMA was in town visiting door to door, and now the Disaster Recovery Center is open at the Norotan Heights Fire Department. And that's really set up for people that need help with doing the FEMA application and would prefer to have the help in person. So that they're open Monday through Saturday, and they're going to be there. They're planning on being there through December 15th. So if you know of any residents that might need help there.
Is that Norotan, Monica, or Norotan Heights?
The
Norotan, thank you.
The Heights.
No,
Norotan Heights, great,
Norotan
thank
Heights
you.
Fire Department.
And Monica, just to be clear, these are for the sort of small business and or individual grants. These have nothing to do with the sort of
It's not the elevation or
the
acquisition.
elevation.
No,
acquisition
that's,
grants.
What was that? What was the phrase you just used?
The small business loan and sort of individual.
No, but you said something about elevation, I just didn't.
It's not the elevation or
Oh,
acquisition
elevation,
rate.
sorry,
Yeah.
I just didn't, there was.
right. So there are two programs. We just approved a grant to help people file applications for the elevation or acquisition through FEMA, through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. This is entirely different. This is more direct assistance to help your home get livable. Has nothing to do with, this other program.
What's the interest rate they charge?
I don't have it here. It is very competitive. The program is actually really terrific for people. You can take out a loan. It's a fixed rate for 30 years. I don't remember what the current rates are, but
1 or 2%?
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Just a quick update on Eversource. On Tuesday, November 30th, Wayne Fox at Gentel and myself participated in a mediation session with Eversource. And one aspect of the presentation that was very important to the town and to residents there was related to the removal of 21 trees. And I'm very happy to say that with the help of our mediator, Eversource has indicated a willingness to do this. They've actually already reached out to residents, and they are planning on starting to take down the trees very, very soon. So we will have another mediation session in the next couple of weeks. Priority for me personally was to get the train stations open, and I'm happy to say that as of tomorrow, the railroad station will be able to be used by commuters. the Department of Public Works will open it at 5 o'clock in the morning and close it at 3 o'clock. It won't be manned, so in the past we had a vendor there. We're still interested in pursuing that, we're not waiting for the vendor. In the past, the vendor's been the person that opened the station and closed it. So there are surveillance cameras in there. We will make sure that the station house is clean, and it'll be open Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. Okay. And if you know of anyone that is interested in the vendor concept, let us know. Let Linda know, actually, or Kate. Happy to say that we are posting. We posted actually today the media relations manager part-time job for Town Hall. That is develops, I'll give you a quick job summary, develops and administers a program fostering public understanding of the town's goals, policies, programs, and services. And we're focusing on sensitive social media posts, press articles, press releases, that kind of thing. So this is a part-time job. It's 19 hours a week, and we're posting it internally and externally. So if you know of anyone that's interested, again, please let Lori or Linda know. And my last comment is I don't know if you're covering this, but we are forming a building committee for the elementary schools. And right now we're specifically looking for people, volunteers in town that have construction experience, either lawyer type of experience or architectural type of experience. And we are looking at a committee of 9 people, and we're forming that right now. So if you know of anyone, please get the word out. That's really important. Maybe Duke has other things to add to that. So that's it for my report. And now we'll,
The building committee, is there a specific reason driving forming because we have a building committee? Something happening with schools?
This is for the next project. This is for the renovation of the 3 elementary schools. So it's a separate building committee. We've spoken to and looked at some people coming over, but since Oxford is still kind of in the middle of
Right.
construction, time and energy, we've got people that are more than willing to help. Monica and I had a great meeting this week that Kip organized, that we got the perspective of what an owner's rep would look like in terms of managing that next project. But there's not pullover from one committee to the next, and the fact that they'll be going on at the same time.
Right, no,
Yeah.
I figured that, I just wondered what was driving the reason to form another building committee? I was unaware of 3 schools, so it's.
Oh,
which
so
is-
Hinley, Holmes, and Royal,
Probably Royal.
right,
The
are
old
undergoing, the goal here, Jamie, it's a great question. It's kind of the move forward of, we've got Oxford up and running, and part of this was all the removal of the portables. So it's centered around the removal of the portables, and then renovations, and then the library reimagine project is incorporated in that. And then just to go a little bit further, what we did is we looked out over 5+ years, worked with the Board of Finance, and pulled all the capital spend that would be going into these buildings and incorporated them into the renovations.
Okay. So practical updating
yeah,
of
yeah.
3 older schools.
Exactly.
All right,
Yeah,
sounds good.
yeah,
Thank you.
good.
Appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you, Monica. Just real quick again, coming off the state of the town estate. COVID update. As of December 7th, we were at 39 cases, total caseload since beginning of school of 189. In quarantine, currently 40. Cumulative since beginning of the school year, 436. We've got 44 at screen and stay, and pretty much all locations have been impacted. Last night we had an additional 2 cases, no quarantines, but 5 students screen and stay. The folks that are in quarantine, again, really not symptomatic, I think, which is a good thing with the high rate of vaccinations. The screen and stay seems to be working. Alan has put in place some additional mitigation strategies at the elementary schools to put more spacing in place around the lunch periods, which we think will help. Although when the nurses and the team look into how this is potentially travels, it's really out of school is where kids are getting it in terms of parties, holiday parties, Thanksgiving, and things like that. So it's not being transmitted in the schools from what we can tell. Those that do quarantine don't seem to have any symptoms, so that's positive, but it has ticked up. It does put pressure on the teachers, because then the teachers go into remote learning. So that's something to think about, and they continue to do a great job with that. I just left a facilities committee meeting. I'll touch on stuff that wasn't in the state of the town. We are getting an update right now. Connecticut Green Bank is there, going over a proposal for solar panel installation at Hinley, Holmes, Royal, and Ox Ridge. The other schools have solar, and they'll be on a plan where, when it comes time for roof replacement, we will look at updates to the solar on those buildings. Touched a little bit on Ox Ridge. I'm headed to a meeting after this meeting where we're moving into the phase of we'll be presented with the latest technology and phone plan, and also furniture, fixtures, and finishes. So we'll be moving forward with that. The goal there is to get that order in. That goes in through a state contract. So we're looking at the numbers today in terms of the school capacity versus enrollment, and having a conversation on that. The good news is, from what we've been told, pushing the opening of the school to the fall versus April doesn't impact any of this, and we're actually ahead of schedule and don't see any challenges with all the production and product issues that we see out in the economy. So we feel good about being able to furnish that school, get the technology and the phone system in there, so that's good. Overall, the project continues to be on schedule and on budget. I'll be trying to organize kind of a tour now that it's enclosed. Brickwork is moving along rapidly, and so I'll reach out to anyone that wants to participate in a tour. It's really kind of neat to see where the building's at. It's enclosed, there's portable heaters in there, so work continues on a good schedule. We did have our first meeting of the Reconstituted Curriculum Committee, established a charge of the Curriculum Committee, which I thought was great, and started out with kind of going back to basics and a high-level curriculum infrastructure overview, who the people are, how curriculum works, how the process works, and also got a preview of a new EduPlanet 21, which is a curriculum management software system that I think will help with a lot of the feedback we've gotten from teachers, from public, in terms of how we look at curriculum and how we present curriculum. The high school has started their, every 10 years, their accreditation with the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. That has started, and the final wrap-up and meetings will be in 2024, so it's quite a long process. The standards of that are student learning, the learning resources, learning culture, professional development, and learning support. So that's exciting. We presented our 5-year capital plan. We changed that from priorities to annual needs, which I think helps. And just currently, as of October financials, we have not looked at the November financials. We're projecting a year-end surplus of $104,000. We're still working through items with Storm Elsa and Storm Ida, going through the insurance process and working with Town Hall on that. And as you all know, we're starting and kicking off the budget season shortly. So it's a quick snapshot. Good.
Thank you.
Do you expect any, in the 3 school renovations, any exterior work, or do you think it's going to be all internal?
That's a good question. So I think there will be some external work. If you look at Hinley, there just needs to be some cleanup and grading and paving. And then part of the project does include looking at each school, and I think it's more the focus is on Hinley, of new entrance and exit and bus looping, especially there on the post road. So we postponed cement and paving at Hinley knowing we were going to do this. And actually in Hinley, the front of we will expose the original front of the school at Hinley, because the library will be coming down and the construction and the renovation will be on the back of the school. Royal will be removing and exposing the original front of Royal School too. There's no plans to change the entrance of the schools, but it'll give us an opportunity to make the front of those schools look nice. But we are incorporating some work that was done around safety and access and bus loops. Okay. Thank you. Good question.
Duke, is that information in the ed specs?
Yes.
Okay, I'll send you the ed specs.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure out what permits and approvals.
Yeah. And that's, Jeremy, thanks for bringing that up. Randy did such a good job on Oxridge, and we're trying to lure him in. I'm not sure he has the time or energy. But yeah, I give a lot of credit to Jeremy and his team. Just incredible to work with, as have all the departments in Town Hall have been, with a focus on a project like that. It's literally been smooth sailing. Our biggest challenges have been, Eversource, of course, but they've worked with us, and sewer and electrical and water, but it's all stuff that comes with a job like that. But thank you for all the hard work on your team.
Can you talk about are you doing solar on Royal's roof?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The solar will be on Hinley, Holmes, Royal, and then of course Oxridge. And then all the other buildings have solar, but there's no point in the solar is fine. And then that solar will be upgraded when we go into roof replacement. To remove the solar, to put new solar on, and then in 3 or 4 years have to put a new roof on just makes no sense. And Rusty Schreiner is somewhat of an expert in solar, so he's been helping the district and Mike Lynch with this whole project, and actually provided the introductions to Connecticut Green Bank.
But you want to do the Royal roof now?
The section that we can do, yes. Yes.
Jim?
Yeah, not a lot to report from the Board of Finance. We finished a lot of our summer projects and so forth, and are really just kind of ramping up and coordinating, scheduling with the RTMs as the Board of Selectmen and Board of Ed budgets start to come out in the next, and your meetings will begin in the next month or so. So not a lot there. We are looking, as relates to the Oxford Building Committee. the new Oxford Elementary School. We have another about $25 million that we need to raise. We'll likely do that depending on the market, depending on sort of what the new budget cycle looks like. It'd probably be a February or March bonding another $25 million for that school and a few other smaller projects we have sitting around like the tennis courts and so forth. But otherwise, there's a presentation that should be uploaded to our website from the state of the town where we went through a lot of the trends that we've seen over the past 5 and 10 years in the town budget and Board of Ed budget. We kind of dissected that in terms of where some of the increases have been. We had a great summary page in there to talk about kind of what actually happened during fiscal 2021. And the good news was we had about 3% more in revenues than we expected. And then if you look at the adjusted budgets were both up about 1.3, 1.4%. But that same amount was then refunded back to the town, or I should say, kind of put back into the general fund, because both budgets had surpluses about equal to their additional, their adjusted budgets, which, the sort of takeaway at the end was originally, if you remember, for the fiscal 21 budget, we'd have earmarked about $4+ million to come out of the general fund because our fund balance was a little bit higher than we needed to be used to sort of offset capital needs. Well, because revenues were higher and expenses were lower, the combination of those two covered those expenses. And so that's why you've seen a little bit of additional creep up in in the unrestricted fund balance, and the portion that we say sort of is above our absolute minimum. So I would just say, although I don't have a sort of crystal ball, as we look into this budget season, we'd likely look to do the same thing, take a portion of the overages that we have, the excess that we have in fund balance, and dedicate that towards, any of the sort of non-bondable capital projects, which, should help alleviate any, budget increases and their effect down onto the mill rate.
Thank you. Any comments for Jim?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I would just say it's been very helpful, certainly on the Board of Ed side, and Jen keeps us updated monthly on the Board of Selectmen side, keeping an eye on what's going on with the current year's budgets and seeing sort of where, if we have small surpluses or small deficits. It's good to kind of keep an eye on that so that we can be ahead of any necessary appropriations. And as we get into budget season, it's as we begin to allocate amounts in the general fund towards capital, it's good to know, like last year, both Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen kept us updated in terms of what those surpluses can be. And we use those to plan the overall tax rate, and it was a very sort of helpful approach. So I think we should,
Stick with it.
a lot of sort of open dialogue and real-time feedback allows us to, design the best budget.
Great.
I do think I appreciate your comment at the end of the meeting. Appropriation request work. I mean, it's about the partnership. It's about keeping each other informed, and we're in good fiscal standing, because of all the hard work of a lot of people in town. So, if need be, the process works when everyone is informed.
Yeah, and I would say, when we talk about sort of guidance, if you recall on that page, I think 9, there's a right column in terms of the unexpected, things like COVID, in terms of what we don't know or can't really plan for, rather than making that into the budget. That's why we carry this reserve fund. And so, it worked great this year, right? And although we appropriated additional, a lot of additional cash, into the Board of Ed budget, by the end of the year, you guys had reallocated and saved money and brought in government funds. All that money came right back. So it's, I think it's a very efficient process. Our board can meet at any time, and the RTM has shown that they can, they can meet quickly and process it as well.
I think collaboration with all of the boards is
100%.
most important. Okay, thanks, Jim. So Jeremy, you're standing in for Steve.
Standing in for Steve. Steve covered a lot of topics Monday night. I don't want to repeat any of those. I will say, P&Z doesn't meet again until January, and on January 4th, they'll have a hearing on the Norton Heights Shopping Center redevelopment, the Goddard School. We start to review plans with the applicant at the staff level this week, and so the hearing will be January 4th, Tuesday night. The decision the commission will make on 3 parklands will be probably late January, early February. So we'll have a better answer on that. And then the commission over the next few months will start in on some of the long-range projects Steve talked about, dealing with marijuana, how is the commission going to handle that from a zoning standpoint, affordable housing plan, and accessory dwelling units. And then further on is looking at legislation coming out of Hartford, or likely to come out of Hartford, or be proposed in Hartford, that we'll have to respond to. Busy year ahead.
Jeremy, how many meetings does the commission have a month? Do they meet
They
every
meet
week?
three times a month.
3 times.
I was just looking at, planning and zoning met 34 times last year, so it's 3 times a month for 10 months.
And is this coming into your busy season?
Yeah, busy season, quiet now. The next application deadline is next Thursday. So we get a lot of people calling, trying to get on,
Right.
and then we'll get them on for January. So right now, we're doing a lot of things in-house, preparing for a lot of applications to come
Right.
in. Some minor, some more major ones.
Okay. Kate, do I need a motion to add Terry?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Hi, Terry.
Oh, hi. Good morning. Quick update from Hartford. We had a meeting last week of Appropriations and Finance Committees. I'm on Finance Committee. And it was Office of Fiscal Analysis, which is the nonpartisan legislative office, budget office, and then also the Office of Policy and Management, which is Governor Lamont's budget office. And they approved, excuse me, on the budget numbers. Presentation from both the heads of those departments. And we are in, excuse me. It's really attractive, isn't it?
It's dry in here.
I'm not sick. I've had everything you can have. We're in very sound fiscal shape for now, but it's not sustainable. We're largely in good fiscal shape because of the federal dollars that came into the state and increased sales and revenue from sales tax. The budget this year is going to, for fiscal '22, we're going to have a surplus of $915 million, more than budgeted. And again, largely due to the federal dollars. For fiscal '23, and the purpose of this meeting we do every year is to give the projections so we can build our policy based on the budget projections for the out years. So right now, we're finishing up, we're in the middle of fiscal '22. Fiscal '23, we will have a surplus, projected surplus of $512 million. Fiscal '24, we go back to a $931 million deficit because of the loss of the federal dollars. It's the rainy day fund is at $3 billion, and that protection of that and that fulfillment of filling the rainy day fund as we should came out of the 2017 bipartisan budget. So that was one of the really good things of people working together, coming up with great solutions that benefit everybody. The other is we will be able to, because of the excess revenue, we will be able to pay down our unfunded pension liability to both the teachers' retirement system and the state employees' retirement system. Combined, what we owe in those, we're still about $95 billion underfunded. So we've still got a lot to pay down to make that whole.
How much underfunded?
$95 billion.
95 billion.
After doing some of this.
Well,
funding.
I think we're gonna pay in $1 or $2 billion.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
still, it's a help.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're getting
absolutely.
there. I mean, we have made improvements, so we're paying, and the other thing we're doing, which came out of the 2017 budget, is we're paying the actuarially required amount into the budget every year. For about 20, 30 years, both parties did not do that. So that's why, largely, that is why we have this underfunded pension liability at that size. And that's based on a 6.99 return on investment.
And Terry,
And we lowered that from, I think, 8 point, I know, yeah, we lowered that a couple of years ago from, I think, a return rate of 8%.
is there still outstanding pension obligation bonds that the state issued to fund that as well?
I don't know, but I'll find out. Kate, do you? I'm sure we
I
have pension
have no
obligation
idea.
bonds.
A lot of
don't know
times
that
the
the state
GO
ever
they
issued
issue
them.
GO to dump into the pension.
Yes, I do know the answer to that. Yes, and what we did was we stretched this out, which many of us voted against this proposal, we stretched it out, instead of it coming to, I think, in 2032, we stretched it out to 2044 or 42, I don't know the exact numbers, but that is costing, you know what that costs us to stretch that out. So we don't have that enormous obligation coming in 2032.
Do you know what percent unfunded the plan is?
I can find out.
Yeah, because I would say that's more, the dollars unfunded, you know, sounds so horrible.
Right.
But I'd be more interested in the percent unfunded.
I'll find out.
But the good news is, like, on a go-forward basis,
Yeah.
we're where we need to be each year, so it's like a big catch-up play.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I think the
Yeah.
6.99% interest assumption is still too high.
Yes.
100, exactly.
Yes.
It should be much lower.
Yeah.
Much more realistic.
Yeah.
You're not alone in having an unrealistic high number, but,
Right. Okay. Sometimes these people, the budget people answer really quickly, we'll see. But it's a great question. And I
Yeah. Well,
certainly,
it's
if
kind
we
of-
don't hear back.
it's a more important, like, if 95 billion unfunded only represented 5%, that's not so bad, even though the 95 sounds so horrible.
Right.
But I think it's probably a lot more than 5%.
Well, we were among the lowest funded pensions, I know, 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, we
Mhm.
still are.
Across the entire country, so
Right, right.
we beat the state, not.
Yes, yeah, not the town, the state.
Correct.
Distinguish those two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very,
thank you,
very,
Jim.
very good. Well, it's a perfect case of proper fiscal management
Mhm.
of our community and other communities. The other pieces of information are the community college consolidation is still moving forward, I know. Which there was a public information hearing on Wednesday this week on people could give their testimony on why they opposed it or why they supported it. There was eloquent testimony from many professors in the community college system, students in the community college system, that they oppose this merger. Right now, they're building a big bureaucracy, administrative bureaucracy. They're being paid big salaries, and they're not delivering any services to students. So what the system is doing is looking at streamlining services. It just doesn't make sense. The entire process does not make sense. And I can go into more detail for those of you who are interested. But the good thing is we've got a much larger group, bipartisan group, looking to learn more and advocate to keep as much local decision-making and local control among the 12 community colleges in the state of Connecticut, rather than locking it into a big bureaucracy. Because you get this big top-down state bureaucracy. I mean, I've seen this in the Human Service Department, when the Human Service Departments were eliminated on the local level, unless a community kept it. Darien kept ours. And it's been an amazing resource for people in town. And Norwalk, interestingly enough, just added someone back in after 20, 30 years. They eliminated the local delivery of human services into regional at that point, and now it's done at the state level. And it's just not been as effective or as efficient as boots on the ground. And the same thing with the community college system, is there's deep concern and valid concern about the curriculum not being developed appropriately for the individual districts. I mean, Three Rivers out in the eastern part of the state has different educational needs, not educational needs, different programming needs than we do here at Norwalk Community College. And Norwalk Community College is an amazing, for those of you who are not aware of it, or don't know that much about it, it's a general school, and it provides education to so many people, and it provides opportunities for those for whom college tuition at a residential college is out of sight. And it's a great education, so.
It's, when I worked with them in the previous life at another bank, it literally is like the crown jewel in
Yes.
the system. And it's interesting that they wouldn't look at, and I think at one point, not that they call it an endowment, but they had a cash reserve in Norwalk, and, you know, the Bowers were very involved. They had an
Yes.
incredible veterinarian program, an incredible nursing program. They replicated every ER of every local hospital. So when these nurses trained and they wound up at Stamford or Greenwich or Norwalk, they knew what they were going into. I mean, the detail was incredible. But it instead of looking at that as the model of how to replicate this, it's just an interesting conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
When this whole merger was proposed in 2011, it was to save $25 million. Well, guess what? It didn't do that. It cost more than that. So it's just not, we need to put parameters and boundaries around it. Again, the good news is it's a bipartisan group of legislators. We're up to about 60 people now, interested in learning more and advocating for a practical service delivery. And yes, maybe we can consolidate services somewhere in the system. Let's make that easy rather than take away the autonomy, the appropriate autonomy of the individual universities.
Terry, talking about autonomy and local decision making, is there any sort of insight into what's going to happen? I think that the governor's emergency powers last another 60 days.
Correct.
In terms of what might happen then?
Good question, don't know. Depends on what this Omicron virus does. Although the hospitalizations, if you've been vaccinated, statistics are very clear. If you've been vaccinated and you get COVID, you might have sniffles. You are not going to the ER, you're not going to the hospital, and you're not in intensive care. So it's a bigger discussion. I mean, the mask thing is confounding people, because in some situations you're supposed to wear a mask, and then you're in a situation where you're wearing a mask, and then you go to another situation where there's no mask. So it's conflicting and confounding and sometimes confusing to people. I don't know what the governor's going to decide. I don't believe he should have extended powers anymore. I have voted against the last 3 extensions because I believe he can already execute an executive power in an emergency. He doesn't need global executive powers to run the state. That's what the legislature, the voice of the people, is for. I don't believe he's abused that. I want to be clear on that. I don't see a situation where he has abused that, but just in the sense of he's running everything by executive power sets a tone that's people can't figure it out for themselves, and we can. So I object more to the philosophy of it than anything. He hasn't done anything, again, to abuse that power. So we don't know.
Terry, going back to the community college, there was a public hearing, can the public voice
Yes.
through you, or?
I will find out. Rick Lopes, Senator Rick Lopes of Hartford, is one of the caucus co-chairs along with Holly Cheeseman, the Community College Consolidation Caucus. Yes, they can submit testimony to me and I can pass it along.
Okay.
But I can also give you Senator Rick Lopes' name. So again, it's a good, strong, bipartisan group of people, all of whom have they deeply value their local community college and want to make sure the students are served. And that's what seems to be missing in this plan.
We made it, in a previous life, we made it part of kind of the HR manual, in that we would support tuition reimbursement at Norwalk Community College. I mean, you get the businesses behind that for,
Right.
From a banking perspective, a teller that doesn't want to be a teller, but it may have an interest in nursing, but is not going to be able to go to a big nursing school anywhere. So it's an incredible system.
Yes, it is. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, at Norwalk High School, and you may know this, they have something called the P-TECH program.
Yes.
And the students at Norwalk High School self-select in, and everybody who wants to get in gets in. They start in 9th grade, and when they graduate as a senior, they have fulfilled the public high school in Connecticut graduation requirements. They have been mentored by an IBM executive, direct mentoring, not just coffee every 6 months, but direct month. I don't know with what frequency, but I know it's a strong, very strong mentorship program. And they have a 2-year paid-for college degree from Norwalk Community College. So,
That's
and they're
incredible.
strongly supported, and many of these families are first generation in our country. So it's an amazing gem of a program, and it's stemming the budget situation that so many families are thrown into with college tuition. And they're focused and they're supported. So it's really a program that should be replicated, I believe, all over the state. And I know there's a move to do that. So thank you for all
Sure.
your good
Yeah.
words and your added words on.
Terry, anything at a high level on the infrastructure bill, and has any conversation started at the state level around that now? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and same on zoning. I know the housing advocates are deeply passionate about seeing changes in zoning, eliminating single-family zoning again. It's an election year, and for the governor, and it's also in all the constitutional offices and all the legislators, so I don't see much happening. But there will be a public hearing, and everyone should testify. We can never take for granted that it won't.
Right.
Because again, the advocates are quite passionate about it. And I do applaud, I think many towns, including Darien, have handled the discussions well, and just asking questions and being very civil in the discourse and looking at solutions rather than just massive changes that are not sustainable.
And I think I was talking to someone yesterday who lives in town, and I said, we're a little bit ahead of the curve here.
Yes.
Many communities are just getting up to where we were 5 or 10 years ago.
I mean, the amount of affordable housing we've built is impressive, and the 3 projects are really just so well done. And about 6 weeks ago, Jamie Stevenson and I did another Bring It Home, and we hosted the 3 developers, and they talked about the programs, what the building and where they are, and it was very informative.
Yeah.
So, and that's available online if everyone wants to see.
But I think even the town and people like everyone here in the room taking it to the next level, and you think of what David's done with Ableist and bringing that home, you know, into that whole development project. I mean, that's like forward thinking and thinking outside of the box, you know, and this top-down punishment mentality, you know,
Well said.
that's the challenge of, you know, and there was a good article last week in
The Hour.
Current, the Hour,
Yeah.
and it's
Great.
yeah, and that's but
Complimenting David
it's
on his
like-
full vision.
come listen and learn what we've done, and we're happy to help, you know, so.
Yeah.
A lot of conversations, a lot of planners from around the state call us and say, okay, what's making it work in Darien? And so they look to us as an example. And that's what the article said.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's a collaboration of the public and private sector, intelligent, high-level conversation. The last note is the legislative districts have, yeah, I know. It's kind of head spinning, but the redistricting commission is set up every 10 years in response to the census, the decennial census, the 10-year census, I don't know what the word is, but 10-year census. And they have to redistrict the Senate districts to be about 100,000 people and the state rep districts to be about 24,000 people. Stanford grew by 10,000 people, 10.1%, 12,000 people, 10.1% population. Norwalk grew by 6.1% population. I think we were at 1% growth, maybe. So the districts in Darien, certainly the Senate district, we now have 3 state senators, which makes no sense. I guess I shouldn't give my opinion, but I will give my opinion. It makes no sense because Stanford has 3 state senators. It's 5 times the size. So Darien got carved up. We were sort of the pressure point of, we have the New York boundary, we have the New York border, we have Long Island Sound, and there wasn't, to accommodate the population growth in Stanford and Norwalk, we felt it in Darien. The state rep district also has a different carve-out than it does. The section over on Quaid Street now is entirely a Stanford district, 147. Because again, the population growth in Stanford. And then a section of what is predominantly a New Canaan district. There will be a section northern Darien that is part of the 125th.
That goes into Wilton too, right?
It goes, correct.
Is that Talladay's district?
Yes. Yeah.
So we now have 3 state reps.
2 state reps.
2 state reps and 3 senators.
state senators.
The bigger problem,
Yes.
I mean, that having the 3 state senators, I feel like, you know, we don't really get much of a voice as a town. But as I see it administratively, the bigger problem is going to be the impact on us for our local purposes. If you overlay the
Yeah.
RTM districts and the state senate districts
Yeah.
and the state house districts, it doesn't line up nice and neatly. And so, you know, the registrars and the town clerk are already working on what they can do. Jeremy's department's provided maps showing it. And it's going to be awkward. You know, you might have an RTM district where you have to have 2 places for people to vote because you're in 2 different Senate districts, so you have to do different ballots. So
So the changes didn't necessarily encompass an entire one of our 6 districts?
they did not. If you looked at this map, District 1, in Darien District 1, has 2 Senate districts and 2 House districts, and none of the lines match up.
And we simply, do our 6 districts have to be reactive to how the state is drawing
Yes.
its lines? Or did the
No,
state take that
you
into
know,
consideration
so
when they did?
you could leave our districts as they are, but you'd have to have, like, within District 1, you'd have to have kind of like precincts or sub-districts so that when people in District 1 go to vote, some of you are voting for one Senate office and some are voting for another. So you'd have to adapt for that.
Yeah, it's.
We could get rid of all the RTM districts
So how many
and
more
just
voting
have one
machines?
district for the RTM, and that would make, make it
How-
a difference.
So effectively, we would need more voting machines, I assume?
Not necessarily.
Ballots.
More
Ballots.
Ballots?
Ballots. And that gets complicated because you have to make sure if you have District 1, and that was a good example, the east side of Brookside Road is the 141st. The west side of Brookside Road, north of Buttonwood, is the 125th. So you have to make sure people are given the right ballot.
And they don't, and the House districts do not line up exactly with the Senate
With the
districts.
Senate.
Right, but that's always been the case. But not as
Yeah.
much as it is in this
There's just gonna be work done, to do here
Right.
to try and make it as simple and cost effective here.
and easily communicated to voters.
Yeah.
So that's and again, it was all driven, it was a bipartisan commission, and it was driven by the population growth in Fairfield County. There was a Senate district, a state house district that was eliminated in the eastern part of the state because of their loss of population. So, and every 10 years, as I recall, the RTM changes districts to align closely with the state rep district. That's what I remember, but I could be off on.
I don't know if it's been every 10 years, but they have the ability to, they have rules about how to do that.
Right,
They have rules about
and good
everything, so.
people are on it, so they'll,
Like, is our goal to have the 6 districts align and be
And,
totally in one
honestly,
set?
before this all, we were looking at, could we reduce the number of RTM districts? Because there are other issues that come as a result of having 6 voting districts. So the registrars had worked on a plan to go to 3 voting districts. So it's just a matter of, they've got to take a look at all the options and possibilities, and then it's going to be up to the RTM.
the last, it's in your hands now. I'm happy to get any information that you might need.
Thank you.
The last point is February 9th, we start this short legislative session. So if anybody has proposals they'd like me to submit, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, anything else for Terry? Any other comments? No? Okay. Number four is discussion and update on current events. I would like to say that I'm very happy that Jamie Gore from Park and Rec received an award from the Connecticut Park and Rec Commission for a young professional. She just received that in November, and she was also given a certificate for $1,000 for continuing ed, so that's terrific. We do have the Wreaths Across America. This is a really pretty incredible organization that's looking to help millions of Americans come together to remember the fallen, honor those that serve, and teach the next generation about the value of freedom. Volunteers gather in America at over 2,500 cemeteries, and we will be having a ceremony at Spring Grove, the Veterans Cemetery at Spring Grove, on December 18th at 11:30. and all are welcome to join, and I think it would be very special. So, thank you to PJ Carter for running that. And that's all I have for new. Does anyone else have anything?
The only thing I'll add, and Terry and I touched base on it the other day, Alan and I did go to the CES up in Trumbull to the legislative breakfast that I know Terry usually goes to. And it was a good conversation, and it was a conversation about kind of the stress that COVID has brought on children, social emotional learning. Talked a little bit about unfunded mandates, and talked about the funding of the special ed budget and, you know, more funding for special ed. And they did talk about the kind of the bringing down to Darien and Norwalk and Stamford the open choice program about kids going to schools in different districts.
It was already voted, it's already here.
Yes,
We
yeah,
voted.
they just did a recap of it, and
Okay.
the towns that are
Got it.
participating talked about the good work that's being done also by the minority teacher and residency program too. So it was a good, you know, full participation from really Fairfield County superintendents, board chairs, and most of the legislative team that's there. So it was a good breakfast.
Those topics, I went to the Connecticut Council of Municipalities meeting, and those topics were also
Same,
talked
yeah.
about then, so
Yeah.
very timely.
Good.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Thank you. Have your
Let's go for
OPC.
motion to adjourn.
Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Jim?
Good.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you.